For Human Rights hears about this particular incident, the story we've just played, where a family is now grieving the loss of a loved one due to the fact that his ventilator basically cut off following unscheduled power cuts in the area. Surely this is unacceptable.
Definitely, Flo, in a country like South Africa with so much wealth, the reports that are coming out from corruption and what continuously gets to be, revealed to the public shows that South Africa has so many, untapped resources that are just directed to, hands that don't need them and abuse them. The issue of the right to life in the South African Constitution, but also intergenerationally, is key to the nation or all nations. Talking of the climate change scenarios that have been painted in the past 21 COPs 26, we know that we have to immediately move to alternative energy resources. If South Africa at the moment has public healthcare facilities, but also some facilities and families that are caring, members that are in need of, continuous, healthcare support like ventilators and other, healthcare support mechanisms. You cannot have an excuse that South Africa, a country that was the first to conduct an operation for a heart, burnout, can at this stage don't have, it can argue that it doesn't have alternative, energy resources. You assume that, a generator will kick, immediately when the blackouts occur, let alone that we have these renewables that are in abundance that have not been tapped into.
Yeah. Sarah, I want to continue speaking on this issue of human rights, the human right aspect to this all. I mean, as you mentioned rightly, that, the right to life, is guaranteed. And in this situation, it was certainly infringed. Where one can prove, indeed, the link between the impact of load shedding and this particular basic human right, can the relevant department under which Eskom operates be held liable for what's taken place?
That is direct negligence, Flo. The right to life is immediate in the Constitution. It's not contested. The government and the other institutions like parastatal, like Eskom, who are supposed to provide sustainable energy supplies to people who are vulnerable, who also have in the same constitution, have the right to access basic health care, have to be provided for. So if you ask the linkages, immediately they can be drawn from, three, provisions in the constitution. That is the right to life, the right to access, clean energy, which is linked to the right to environment, and the right to health, which are basic in the Constitution. Remember, before 94, this right was not guaranteed, and you had a lot of situations where majority were deprived. And having this Constitution, it told South Africans and the world at large that we have won a struggle, which in many in international platforms, this Constitution is referenced as the best in the world. Therefore, what does it mean? I mentioned the issue of being the first country to operate and provide a heart to someone who had a precarious condition. So how can that be at this age? We cannot be able to support people who need this, constitution to function in their lives.
Yeah, and I mean, we're continuing to talk about the escalating blackouts as Eskom does indeed announce, and I'm certainly here announcing that. What are your your biggest concerns, as a foundation in the infringement of, some of these, and we'll see continued infringements of basic human rights that may be violated in the process. And I mean, what is your contribution to the discussions around the issue of load shedding, as we see how much it's becoming problematic even to basic human rights?
This narrative is long overdue, Florence. For more than 10 years, countries have been asked to seek alternative sources of energy. And now the ground zero hit last year when all countries were requested and took commitment. I remember also our president committed to resort to alternative, energy, renewable energy resources. But let's not even go there for an immediate start. As the foundation, our submission is that how can institutions and people who are vulnerable who can't have access directly to energy throughout all conditions that the energy companies find themselves, facing. I mean, in countries like Senegal, for example, pediatrician hospitals where energy which is sourced from coal does not really exist. They sustain energy supply through, solar power. Why South Africa can't, move to that direction? There's also abundance of wind energy, we know, and water, and hydropower. We know water can, generate energy. Where are the turbines that are pumping energy into our reserves so that they kick in? Because even if you talk of the generators, they always also use, fossil fuels. But we know immediately these conditions can be scratched by the country's commitment and the leadership to migrate immediately to alternatives, but also to generators for a start.
Yeah. Sarah Motha, thanks very much for giving us your time. We certainly do appreciate your input on the show. Sarah Motha is the program manager for vulnerable groups at the Foundation for Human Rights.